May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. So this is the night. This is the night when the world is transformed by God's love. But in the night, we may know nothing about it. This is the night when the dove flies in with an olive branch in her beak, and we look out, and all we can see is water everywhere. This is the night when the blood of the Passover lamb has allowed the Israelites to escape the shadow of death that has wiped out so many of the Egyptian firstborn, and yet they are still uncertain. As we leave Egypt, how will we outrun the chariots of Pharaoh? This is the night when Ezekiel looks out over the valley of the dry bones and wonders, can these bones live? O Lord, you know. This is the night when the Israelite people who have been living in exile in Babylon are finally returning home. And on the journey, they wonder, is there a home to come home to? This is the night when Jesus broke the bonds of death. But we still start out looking for him at the tomb. You see, in ancient tradition, the new day begins in the darkness. It's like a seed planted in the soil of night. And the seed of Easter is planted in the darkness of the tomb. And on this night, Easter begins. And even though we may know nothing about it, and like the women, thinking the world is just the same as it was when we went to bed, we come to the tomb. As first light is dawning, we are expecting to find a body. A beloved body, but a cold body. We are expecting to do this ritual, this loving act of anointing the body of Jesus. We're expecting to enter a grave. We're not expecting to find a womb. We're expecting to weep with grief. We're not expecting to shed tears of joy. We're expecting to live in a world where innocent people are murdered by what passes for human justice. Not a world where all humanity has been forgiven, made alive, made new again, not because of their deeds, but because of the love of God. The women are not expecting to find anything hopeful on this Easter morn. They're not expecting a transformation to have happened overnight. I imagine they've hardly slept themselves. And after tossing and turning in the dark with their grief, they finally give up on sleep. The shock of Jesus' death will not allow them to rest. And so they come to the tomb to do the one thing that will bring them some peace, bring them some healing. And this is why we celebrate Easter in the night, on this night, in a vigil. It's a way for us to wait up in the night with God, to sit in this pregnant nighttime with God, watching God's gathering contractions that will bring about the resurrection of Jesus from the tomb. And this labor, while it may seem like death, but really, it's about the beginning of new life. This is how God plants new life in the midst of our dying. This is how resurrection happens. In the midst of what seems to us like death, in a time filled with sickness and fear, in a moment when we have all retreated to our homes, doing the loving thing of making physical separation, and only when we emerge into public life with a mask over our smile, with gloves on our hands, and this crazy time when we cannot even touch one another with a sign of peace. In this darkness, God is doing the work of resurrection. But like the first Easter, we just can't see it quite yet. It's still night for us. And as Christians, we believe that this night is when it happens. You see, we never get to witness the resurrection with our very own eyes. Usually what happens is that we stumble upon it after the fact. We only notice that something is different when we feel that earthquake, when we see an angel sitting triumphantly upon an enormous stone of death, when we hear the good news that Jesus is risen and death does not have the last word, then and only then do we realize that the resurrection actually happened. It just happened before we became aware of it. This is often how God works. Resurrection is revealed to us in hindsight. It's always a surprise. God's work of resurrection happens first while we are still in grief, or maybe we are still sleeping. Later, we discover that the tomb is empty, and we have to make sense of our world through this shock and surprise of Easter. The angel greets us at the tomb and says, "Do not be afraid," as all angels do. "I know that you are looking for Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he has been raised. As he said, come and see the place where he lay." I dare say that in our own church life, we have been experiencing death. Not only the illness and death of people in our state and across the nation infected with this COVID-19 coronavirus, but also the death of our communal life together as we knew it before this happened. The word church literally means gathering. It comes from a Greek word, ekklesia. You would have translated it gathering before the Christian church. And as the CDC and the World Health Organization and our own governor established stricter protocols for our own health and safety, the number of people who could gather dwindled. 100, 50, 25, less than 10. Dwindled until we had to shut our doors and put gathering, or literally church, in the tomb. We closed our gathering space, the church, the building. And for many of us, there have been times over the last 4 weeks that it has felt like, well, a funeral, a coming to the tomb. Perhaps you're also experiencing the loss of communal life in other areas, like work, like your neighborhood, like schools, all the ways in which we used to gather, and it's no longer an option. The joy of being physically present with one another, it has been taken from us. And we must learn to love our neighbor at 6 paces. We must see them from behind a screen, hear them through a telephone line, touch them only with a pen pressed to paper. And at the same time as all of this has been happening, I have been seeing some signs of resurrection. That in this darkness, God has been doing some work. I did feel the earth shake a few times. One day, there was some folks who had sworn to me they would never embrace technology, swore they would never do anything more than maybe email or pick up the phone. And then an earthquake. They risked a Zoom conference. Discovered the gift of seeing multiple faces at the same time, sharing our lives and praying together. And their world cracked open a little bit. An angel came and sat on the tombstone and commanded my heart to stop being afraid. Afraid that after 277 years, the people of All Saints would scatter to the four winds, that untended, unloved, and disconnected from the gathering inside their church building and with their God and one another, that something terrible was going to happen. And the angel said to me, "Don't be afraid. I know you are looking for community, which has been crucified in this moment. Community isn't here. Stop looking in the empty church building. Stop looking here where the lights have gone dark. Community is alive and well in the hearts that are connecting with phone calls, with emails, with Zoom conferences, with Facebook and FaceTime, with acts of love and presence, delivering food, supplying shelter, all the ways that you all are connecting." The angel said to me, "Don't be afraid. Community has been raised from the dead, and it is more alive now than ever before. Resurrection life is leading us towards a new future, one that we could never have imagined before this virus of COVID-19 transformed our lives and put us into the tomb, so to speak. We had to die first in order for God to make us resurrected and alive. And people have been sharing stories with me of deep connection, stories of love, stories of becoming church, ways that have surprised them, things that would never have happened, never have occurred in the midst of our community if we hadn't first entered the tomb. People are learning about each other in a new way. They are sharing their need and their faith in a vulnerable openness that tells me that the church is not dead. The church is alive. Christ is being made present in the midst of us. All the ways that we have struggled over the years, my last almost 4 years with you, struggled to make fellowship happen, struggled to find ways, room for our hearts to connect. How will we merge together our various worship services? How will we come together as one body? And in the midst of our separation and physical distancing, I think God is doing that work. God is bringing us together as one body. Resurrection is happening. All of our preconceived notions about where to look for the church have been taken away, and we are becoming reborn, a resurrected church. And it looks like nothing I would have imagined. So this is the night. This is the night where death is turned to life. And once you experience resurrection, you can't keep it to yourself. The angel encourages the women, "Go quickly, tell the other disciples about the resurrection and where they can find the risen Lord." And I can feel the angel pressing me, pushing me, "Go quickly. Tell the others about the resurrected church. Tell them where to find the risen community, not in the tomb, not in the empty building, not in the places where we are feeling grief and loss and death, but the church is alive in the world. in each other's hearts and homes, leap into each other's living rooms, around each other's dining room tables, gather at each other's altars in this virtual communication that we have constructed. Be present for the church in a new way, because it is no longer gathered in one place, it is gathered everywhere. This is the night. This is the night when our loving touch phone tree is growing. This is the night when a garden, a forest of connection is being born. And Jesus, the risen Lord, the firstborn of the dead, is meeting us along the way. Greetings, Jesus says to us when we are running quickly to tell the others. And we come to him. We take hold of his feet and we worship him. And when I consider this intimate image of love and tenderness, it seems to me today almost unimaginable. We are living right now in our current moment, not coming towards anybody. We are not touching anyone, anywhere, let alone their feet. We are living still in a world of physical distance and the removal of touch. And yet, when we encounter the resurrected church, it feels to me like this intimate embrace. Jesus meeting us along the way and saying greetings. A moment when all of our defenses drop and we are collapsing in love into each other's care, into each other's arms, even as we are separated by distance. I have learned about the loneliness and the fear that you are feeling, that I am feeling, and only a soul with deepest trust would expose that kind of vulnerability to another human being. Only in the presence of Christ can we be that real. And we have come close to each other. Greetings. We have worshiped Christ together. Greetings. We have found that life is in the midst of us, not death, not fear, not the darkness, but rather this very light continues to burn in the midst of us. And so Jesus says to us, don't be afraid. Go tell the others. Tell them where they will find me. Don't wait around here at the doors of a darkened building. Go out. Don't be afraid. Run to all the places where the church is alive and very well. The resurrected church is living and breathing in your homes. Jesus is breathing and eating and walking around in your house. Go to Middletown. Go to Linganore. Go to Mount Airy. Go to Spring Ridge. Go to Baker Park. Go to every house in the directory of All Saints, and then knock on a few more doors while you're at it. And let them know that they will see the risen Lord if they look in the place where he is living. And I have seen Christ is alive in your homes, in your lives, and in this community of faith that we are building together. God is doing this resurrection work. And on this Easter day, may we celebrate. May we remember what has drawn us into this faith, into this community, into this belief in a resurrection more powerful than death, a love that brings us all back to life. And may we proclaim it from the rooftops. May we whisper it in our own homes to those we love. May we gather together in this new way that reminds us Christ is alive. Easter has come. Amen.